Gate agent threatens black girls with service dogs until call to dad fired entire crew. But what happened in those 37 minutes before that call, before the father arrived, before anyone with power intervened, reveals a truth about racial profiling in American airports that will make you question every interaction you've ever witnessed and stayed silent about. Black girls flying first class? The gate agent's voice was loud, dripping with suspicion and contempt. Let me guess. Drug money, right? Because there's no way you people could afford these tickets legitimately. I'm calling security. We need the dogs to check you both for suspicious substances. The words hit 14-year-old Maya and 12-year-old Jordan Thompson like a slap across the face. They stood at Gate C-42 of Delta Airlines in Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, their first-class boarding passes clutched in shaking hands, tears already forming in their eyes. They'd been so excited that morning. Easter weekend with Uncle Marcus in Miami. First-class seats their father had surprised them with. A special trip that was supposed to feel grown-up and magical. Now they were being accused of being drug dealers. In front of hundreds of people. Because their black skin made first-class tickets suspicious. Here's what people need to understand. Racism didn't die with the civil rights movement. It didn't disappear when discrimination became illegal. It evolved. It got smarter. It learned to hide behind policies and security protocols and concerned authority. And in 2025, it had learned to weaponize service dogs against black children, to turn airport security into racial terror, to make accusations that could destroy lives based on nothing but the color of skin. The racism Maya and Jordan faced wasn't history. It was happening right now in a major American airport with hundreds of witnesses, and it was more dangerous than ever because it wore the mask of legitimate security concerns. Maya looked at the female gate agent, at the white woman's face twisted with certainty that two black girls with first-class tickets must be criminals, and felt something crack in her chest. Not surprised, though. She'd been followed in stores before. Had security guards watch her too closely in nice neighborhoods. Had teachers assume she needed extra help because black girls couldn't possibly be naturally smart. At 14, she'd already learned what it meant to be seen as suspicious just for existing. But this? Being accused of drug trafficking in an airport? Having her 12-year-old sister called a criminal? This was a new level of cruelty. Ma'am, please, Maya said, her voice shaking, trying to be polite like her parents had taught her. Our father bought these tickets. We're just going to Miami to visit our uncle for Easter. We're not doing anything wrong. Please check our records. Everything is legitimate. Before we continue with the story, welcome to Hyper Racism Channel, where we expose the truth about racial profiling of black people in America, truths the airline industry would rather keep hidden. They don't want us to reach a wide audience, but we're not backing down. Let's make sure the truth gets out. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe to this channel. Together, we can reach millions with the facts they've tried to bury. Thanks for hitting that subscribe button and supporting our channel. I already checked your records, the gate agent snapped. And it doesn't add up. Two black teenagers flying first class on Easter weekend? To Miami? That's a drug corridor. You expect me to believe your story? I've seen this 1,000 times. You people think you're clever, but we know what's really going on. You people. The phrase hung in the air like poison. Jordan started crying openly now, her 12-year-old mind unable to process why a trip to see family had turned into an accusation of being a criminal. Maya wrapped her arm around her sister protectively, feeling her own tears starting to fall. Around them, Gate C-42 was packed with Easter weekend travelers. Families heading to Miami. Business people going to meetings. College students on spring break. At least 50 people stood within hearing distance. Some had their phones out already, recording the confrontation, the little red lights blinking steadily. A businessman in a suit looked uncomfortable. An elderly white couple shook their heads but said nothing. A young family pretended not to notice, the parents quickly turning their children away. Everyone saw two black girls being publicly accused of drug trafficking. Everyone heard the racist profiling. And not one person spoke up. Please don't call security, Jordan sobbed, her voice small and terrified. We didn't do anything wrong. We're just kids. We just want to see our uncle. The gate agent's face hardened. That's exactly what someone with something to hide would say. Security is already on their way. With the dogs. And if you're clean like you claim, then you have nothing to worry about. But something tells me those dogs are going to find exactly what I think they'll find. She reached out suddenly and grabbed both girls' phones from their hands before they could react. I'll hold on to these until security arrives. Can't have you calling your drug dealer friends to warn them. If you believe no child should be falsely accused of drug trafficking because of their skin color, keep watching. If you think racial profiling at airports is something we solved decades ago, you need to see what happens in the next 30 minutes. And if you've ever been treated like a criminal for existing while black, drop a comment below and tell us your story. We're reading every single one. Tell us where you're watching from and what time it is right now. This story doesn't end the way you think. What this gate agent doesn't know about these girls' father will destroy her career and everyone who helped her. But to understand how two innocent black girls ended up being threatened with service dogs and accused of drug trafficking at a major American airport, we need to go back 6 hours to that Easter morning in Atlanta when the Thompson family believed the world was full of joy and possibility. Maya Thompson was 14 years old, a freshman at North Springs High School with a 4.2 GPA and dreams of becoming a civil rights attorney. She was on the debate team, played violin in the school orchestra, and had just won second place in a statewide essay competition about racial justice in modern America. Her younger sister Jordan was 12, a seventh grader who loved science and basketball, who'd made the honor roll every semester since fourth grade, who wanted to be an aerospace engineer and design rockets for NASA. They were good kids. Polite. Responsible. The kind of daughters who made their parents proud every single day. Their father, David Thompson, was a successful corporate attorney who'd built his career from nothing. He'd grown up poor in South Atlanta, worked his way through college and law school, and now sat on the boards of several major companies. What most people didn't know was that David was also a minority shareholder in Delta Airlines, a silent investor who'd put money into the company years ago as part of a diversification strategy. He didn't work for the airline, didn't involve himself in operations, just owned shares and attended occasional investor meetings. His name wasn't known to gate agents or flight crews. He was just another black man with money that people assumed he couldn't have earned legitimately. Their mother, Lisa Thompson, was a pediatrician who ran a clinic serving underserved communities. She'd taught her daughters to be proud of their blackness, to know their history, to understand that the world would judge them differently but that they had every right to exist in any space with dignity. She'd also taught them to be cautious, to be twice as good, to understand that their excellence wouldn't always protect them from racism but that they should pursue it anyway. This Easter trip to Miami was special. Uncle Marcus, David's younger brother, had recently moved there and invited his nieces for the holiday weekend. Easter egg hunts on the beach. Visiting the Miami Seaquarium. A special family dinner. Maya and Jordan had been counting down the days for weeks. And when their father had surprised them with first-class tickets, they'd been ecstatic. First class. Like the fancy travelers they'd always watched while walking to economy. This felt like a milestone, a sign that they were growing up, that their family's success meant opportunities and experiences. That morning, Lisa had made them a special breakfast while they packed their carry-on bags. Maya brought her journal and the book she was reading for English class. Jordan packed her basketball and a science kit she wanted to show Uncle Marcus. They talked about what they'd do in Miami, about the warm weather and the beach, about how much fun Easter weekend would be. David had driven them to Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, going over the usual rules even though his daughters had flown before. Stay together. Be polite to everyone. Call when you land. Text updates. He'd hugged them both tight at the departure curb, told them he loved them, reminded them that they were Thompson girls and Thompson girls carried themselves with pride and dignity wherever they went. Check-in had been smooth. The Delta agent at the counter had smiled warmly, processed their first-class tickets without question, wished them a wonderful Easter. Security had been normal. TSA agents were professional and quick. At the gate, they'd settled into the waiting area with excitement bubbling over. Maya had taken a selfie of them both with their boarding passes, posted it to Instagram with the caption "First class bound for Miami with my favorite sister" with a plane emoji and a heart. Jordan had texted their parents, "We made it to the gate, all good, love you." Other passengers filled the gate area. Families with children. Business travelers in suits. College students heading to Miami for spring break. The usual crowd of Easter weekend travel. Most people barely glanced at the two black girls sitting together, sharing earbuds and watching videos on Maya's phone. They were just part of the crowd. Invisible in the way teenagers often are. Then she had appeared. The gate agent. Sharon Mitchell, according to her name tag. White woman, maybe late 40s, with blonde hair pulled back severely and an expression that suggested she took her authority very seriously. She'd started the boarding process with the usual announcements, calling zones in order, checking boarding passes with mechanical efficiency. When Maya and Jordan had approached with Zone 1, first-class boarding, Sharon's demeanor had shifted subtly. Her eyes had narrowed slightly. She'd taken their boarding passes and studied them longer than necessary, looking back and forth between the passes and the girls' faces like she was searching for evidence of fraud. "These are your tickets?" Sharon had asked, her tone suggesting doubt. "Yes, ma'am," Maya had answered politely. "Our father bought them for us. We're going to Miami to visit our uncle for Easter." Sharon had scanned the passes. They'd beeped green. Valid. Legitimate. Paid for in full. But instead of handing them back and waving the girls through like she'd done for every other first-class passenger, Sharon had held onto the passes and studied the girls with open suspicion. "First-class tickets are expensive," Sharon had said slowly. "How old are you girls?" "I'm 14 and my sister is 12, Maya had answered, confused by the question. "And you're traveling alone? To Miami? On Easter weekend?" "Yes, ma'am. Our uncle lives there. Our father put us on this flight." Sharon's expression had hardened. "Step aside, please. I need to verify something." Maya and Jordan had moved to the side, confused and increasingly uncomfortable as Sharon had picked up the phone and made a call, her eyes never leaving the girls. Around them, other passengers had continued boarding, glancing at the two black girls standing off to the side with growing discomfort written across their young faces. That's when Sharon had hung up the phone and said the words that would change everything. The words about drug money and you people and suspicious substances. The words that would turn an Easter vacation into a nightmare. The words that would reveal just how deep racial profiling ran in American airports. And Maya and Jordan Thompson, two honor roll students who'd never been in trouble in their lives, were about to learn the hardest lesson of their young existence. That being black in first class made you suspicious. That excellence and achievement didn't protect you from racism. That the world could accuse you of being a criminal based on nothing but prejudice and bias. Sharon Mitchell had looked at two successful black girls with legitimate tickets and seen drug dealers. And she was about to use every tool at her disposal, including weaponized service dogs, to make their lives hell. She had no idea that these weren't just any black girls. That their father had resources and connections that could destroy her career. That her racial profiling was about to cost her everything. But Maya and Jordan didn't know that yet either. They just knew they were being accused of something horrible. And security with dogs was coming. And nobody in this crowded gate was going to help them. The nightmare was just beginning. Sharon Mitchell stood at gate C42 with the girls' phones in her hand and a look of satisfaction on her face that made Maya's stomach turn. The gate agent had already made up her mind. Had already decided that two black teenagers with first-class tickets were criminals. And now she was making sure everyone in the terminal knew it. "Look at them," Sharon said loudly to another gate agent who'd appeared beside her. Crying and scared. Classic behavior of people with something to hide. "I've worked at this airport for 15 years and I can spot a mule a mile away. These girls are transporting drugs for someone. I'd bet my career on it." The other gate agent, a younger white man, looked uncomfortable. "Sharon, maybe we should just let them board. Their tickets are valid. We can't just accuse passengers without evidence." "Evidence?" Sharon's voice rose sharply. "They're black teenagers flying first class to Miami on Easter weekend. That's all the evidence I need. Miami is a drug corridor. First class tickets cost thousands. You think these girls earn that money legitimately? Use your brain, Derek." Derek shifted his weight awkwardly but didn't argue further. Another employee who saw injustice happening and chose his job security over protecting children. He walked away, leaving Sharon alone with her racism and her victims. Please, Maya begged, her voice breaking. Just check our records. Call our father. His name is David Thompson. He's an attorney. He bought these tickets weeks ago. We're not doing anything wrong. David Thompson, Sharon repeated mockingly. Let me guess. He's a drug dealer too? That's how he affords first-class tickets for his kids? You people always have the same story. Always claim you're legitimate. But we know better. You people. There it was again. That phrase that reduced Maya and Jordan to nothing more than their skin color. That erased their achievements, their character, their humanity. That labeled them as criminals based solely on prejudice and hate. We're honor roll students, Jordan sobbed, trying desperately to make this woman see them as children instead of threats. I'm in 7th grade. My sister is in 9th grade. We've never been in trouble. We just want to visit our uncle for Easter. Please believe us. Sharon's face hardened. Honor roll? Drug dealers' kids go to school too. That doesn't prove anything. And the more you protest, the more suspicious you look. Innocent people don't cry and beg. They cooperate with security. Around them, Gate C-42 had gone from busy to packed. Word had spread that something was happening. Passengers waiting for other flights had drifted over. Some were recording openly on their phones. Others pretended to look at departure screens while listening. The crowd had grown to at least 75 people. And not one of them spoke up. A businessman in an expensive suit stood 5 feet away, watching the whole thing, his face troubled but his mouth closed. A mother with 2 young children stared at Maya and Jordan with pity in her eyes but pulled her kids closer instead of intervening. An elderly black couple stood near the window, the man shaking his head sadly, the woman covering her mouth, but neither moved to help. Fear of confrontation. Fear of making things worse. Fear of becoming targets themselves. Whatever the reason, their silence was consent to the girl's suffering. My parents taught us to respect authority, Maya said desperately, trying every argument she could think of. They taught us to be polite and follow rules. We're doing everything you asked. We showed you our tickets. They're real. We're real. We're just kids trying to take a trip. Why won't you believe us? Because I've seen this before, Sharon said coldly. Young black kids, expensive tickets, drug routes. It's a pattern. And security is going to prove me right. Those dogs are trained to detect narcotics. When they signal on you, when they find what I know you're carrying, you're going to wish you'd confessed now and saved yourself the trouble. We don't have drugs, Jordan screamed, her 12-year-old composure completely shattered. We don't have anything. Please just let us go. Please. We want our daddy. We want to call our daddy. Your daddy can't help you now, Sharon said with cruel satisfaction. Nobody can. You're going to stand right here and wait for security. And if those dogs find what I think they're going to find, you too are going to jail. Maybe that will teach you people that you can't just do whatever you want. The racism was so blatant, so undisguised, that several passengers looked genuinely shocked. A young white woman covered her mouth in horror. A black man in business attire pulled out his phone and started recording deliberately, his face set with anger. An Asian couple whispered urgently to each other in another language, clearly disturbed. But still, nobody intervened. Nobody stood between Sharon Mitchell and the children she was terrorizing. Maya wrapped her arms around Jordan, both sisters crying now, holding each other in the middle of a crowded airport gate while being publicly accused of drug trafficking. Their Easter trip was destroyed. Their excitement was gone. Their sense of safety in the world was crumbling. They'd been taught that being good, being polite, and being excellent would protect them from racism. But here was proof that nothing protected black children when someone decided they were guilty. Sharon's radio crackled. Security responding to Gate C-42 with K-9 unit. ETA 3 minutes. Good, Sharon said loudly enough for everyone to hear. The dogs are coming. And these girls are about to learn what happens when you try to smuggle drugs through my gate. We're not smuggling anything, Maya sobbed. Why won't you believe us? Why are you doing this to us? Because you're exactly the type we need to watch, Sharon said, her racism now completely naked. Young black girls with expensive tickets and attitude. You think you can come through here acting like you belong in first class? You think nobody's going to question how you afforded it? This is my gate. I decide who looks suspicious. And you two look very suspicious to me. The cruelty was breathtaking. The dehumanization was complete. Sharon Mitchell had looked at two children and seen nothing but stereotypes and prejudice. Had decided their blackness was evidence of criminality. Had weaponized her authority to terrorize them. And she was doing it confidently, openly, in front of dozens of witnesses, because she knew from experience that nobody would stop her. Jordan's legs gave out. She sank to the floor, still crying, her 12-year-old body unable to handle the stress and fear and humiliation. Maya dropped down beside her, holding her sister, both of them on the floor of gate C-42 while passengers stepped around them, while phones recorded them, while Sharon Mitchell stood over them with triumph in her eyes. "Stay down there," Sharon said coldly. "Makes it easier for the dogs to check you. They'll be here any minute. And then everyone will see that I was right. That you two are exactly what I said you were." Through her tears, Maya heard footsteps. Heavy boots. Official voices. Radio chatter. And underneath it, a sound that made her blood run cold. Dogs barking. Aggressive, trained, weapon-like barking. The kind of sound that promised pain. Security had arrived. And the nightmare was about to get so much worse. The service dogs weren't coming to examine them for drugs. They were coming to be used as instruments of terror against two black children who'd committed no crime except existing in a space where a racist woman decided they didn't belong. And still, in a crowd of 75 people, not one person stood up to say this was wrong. Not one adult put themselves between Sharon Mitchell and the children she was determined to destroy. They watched. They recorded. They whispered that someone should do something. But nobody did. Two airport security officers emerged from the crowd with German shepherds straining at their leashes. The dogs were large, muscular, trained to detect substances, but what happened next had nothing to do with proper detection protocols and everything to do with using animals as weapons against terrified children. "Officer Martinez and Officer Collins," Sharon said, gesturing at Maya and Jordan still huddled on the floor. "These two are suspected drug mules. I need a full K-9 examination. Be thorough." But instead of conducting a proper examination where the dogs would sniff luggage and belongings from a safe distance, Officer Martinez walked his German shepherd directly up to the girls. The dog was snarling now, teeth bared, pulled forward on a short leash that brought its snapping jaws within inches of Jordan's face. Jordan screamed and pressed herself against Maya, both girls trying to back away but with nowhere to go. They were cornered against the gate desk, trapped between Sharon Mitchell's hatred and a dog being used to terrorize them into a false confession. "Make them confess," Sharon instructed the officers. "These girls are carrying drugs. I can feel it. Use whatever methods necessary." Officer Collins brought his dog close to Maya. The animal was barking aggressively, trained aggression being weaponized against a 14-year-old girl. "Where are the drugs?" Collins demanded. "Tell us now before these dogs find them the hard way." "We don't have drugs," Maya sobbed, her voice barely audible over the barking. "Please. We're just kids. We're going to visit our uncle. Our father bought the tickets. Please don't hurt us." "Wrong answer," Martinez said, letting his dog lunge forward. The German shepherd's teeth snapped mere centimeters from Jordan's arm. The 12-year-old's scream pierced the terminal, a sound of pure terror that should have made every adult present ashamed of their inaction. Around them, the crowd had grown larger. Over 100 people now watched two children being threatened with attack dogs. Phones were up everywhere. This was being documented from dozens of angles. The evidence of this abuse was being recorded in high definition. And still, nobody intervened. "Please," Jordan begged, her whole body shaking. "Please don't let them bite us. We didn't do anything. We're telling the truth." "The truth?" Sharon scoffed. "Black girls flying first class to Miami? That's not the truth. That's a drug operation. Confess and maybe we'll keep the dogs back. Keep lying and we'll let them do their job." Maya's mind was racing, trying to understand how this was happening. How could security officers use dogs this way? How could they threaten children with animal attacks? How could this be legal? But the reality was crushing down on her. They had all the power. She and Jordan had none. They were black children being accused by white authority figures. Who would believe them? Our father's name is David Thompson. Maya tried one more time, desperation making her voice crack. He's an attorney. He has the receipts for these tickets. Please just call him. Please verify our story before you hurt us. We don't need to call anyone, Officer Collins said. These dogs will tell us everything we need to know. And if you're lying, if you have drugs, they're going to find them. And it won't be pleasant. He let his dog surge forward again. Maya threw her arms up instinctively to protect her face. The dog's hot breath and snarling filled her senses. She could see its teeth, could imagine them tearing into her flesh, could feel the absolute helplessness of being 14 years old and facing violence she had no way to prevent. A woman in the crowd gasped audibly. A man muttered that this didn't look right. A teenager pulled out his phone and started recording specifically because something about this felt wrong, felt illegal, felt like abuse that needed to be documented. But none of them stepped forward. None of them said stop. None of them put their bodies between these officers and these children. They captured the horror. They witnessed the injustice. They did nothing to end it. Confess, Officer Martinez demanded again, his dog straining at the leash. Tell us who gave you the drugs. Tell us who you're delivering to in Miami. Make this easy on yourselves. There are no drugs, Maya screamed, her voice raw with terror and frustration. We're honor roll students. We've never been in trouble. We're going to see our Uncle Marcus for Easter. That's all. That's the truth. Please believe us. Sharon pushed between the officers, getting in Maya's face. You want us to believe you're just innocent little girls? Then explain the first-class tickets. Explain how your daddy affords that on an attorney's salary. Explain why you're so scared if you have nothing to hide. We're scared because you're threatening us with dogs, Jordan sobbed. We're scared because you won't believe us. We're scared because we're just kids and you're hurting us. Sharon's expression was ice cold. You should be scared. Maybe fear will make you tell the truth. She nodded to the officers. Keep the pressure on. Use the dogs. These girls will break eventually. They always do. Officer Martinez let more leash out. His German Shepherd moved closer to Jordan, the animal's training making it appear aggressive and dangerous on command. Jordan's screams got louder, more desperate, more heartbreaking. She pressed against Maya, both sisters clinging to each other, both crying so hard they could barely breathe. And the crowd watched, recorded, whispered, did nothing. Somewhere in that crowd, someone who knew these girls was watching. Someone who would finally find the courage to intervene. But Maya and Jordan didn't know that yet. All they knew was terror. All they felt was the horrible understanding that nobody was coming to save them. That they were alone with their abusers. That being black children accused by white authority meant their truth didn't matter. The dogs barked. Sharon smiled. The officers tightened their grips on the leashes. And two innocent girls who'd woken up excited about Easter weekend sobbed on an airport floor while service animals were weaponized against them and 100 witnesses chose silence over salvation. For the next 12 minutes, Maya and Jordan Thompson experienced a level of terror that no child should ever endure. The security officers rotated their tactics, bringing the dogs close then pulling them back, creating a cycle of fear that kept the girls in a constant state of panic. This wasn't an examination. This was psychological torture designed to break children into confessing to crimes they hadn't committed. Just admit it, Officer Collins said, his German Shepherd's teeth snapping inches from Maya's shoulder. Admit you're carrying drugs and this stops. Keep lying and we let the dogs do what they're trained to do. Maya couldn't even form words anymore. She just shook her head desperately, tears streaming down her face, her whole body trembling with fear so intense she thought she might pass out. Beside her, Jordan had gone almost catatonic, staring at the snarling dogs with wide, traumatized eyes, her crying reduced to quiet whimpers of terror. Sharon Mitchell stood watching with her arms crossed, satisfaction written across her face. She'd been right to stop these girls. They looked guilty as hell. Their fear proved it. Innocent people didn't react like this. Innocent people cooperated calmly. These girls were hiding something. The dogs would prove it soon enough. Around them, the crowd had swelled to over 150 people. Gate C-42 had become a spectacle. Travelers from other gates had come to see what was happening. The area was packed with witnesses, all of them recording, all of them watching two black children being terrorized with service dogs, all of them doing absolutely nothing to stop it. An elderly white man in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. "This doesn't look right," he muttered to his wife. "Those girls look terrified. Are they even checking them properly or just scaring them?" "We shouldn't get involved," his wife whispered back urgently. "Airport security knows what they're doing. Those girls must have done something." And that was the refrain repeated throughout the crowd. They must have done something. Security wouldn't do this without reason. Black girls in first class did seem suspicious. Maybe it's better to just watch and not interfere. The mental gymnastics that allowed over 100 people to witness child abuse and convince themselves it wasn't their responsibility to intervene. Maya thought about her mother braiding her hair that morning, about her father hugging them at the curb, about Uncle Marcus waiting in Miami, probably checking his phone to see if their flight was on time, about the Easter egg hunt they were going to miss, about the life she'd had 6 hours ago when the world felt safe and fair and like a place where being good meant being protected. That world was gone. Destroyed by Sharon Mitchell's racism and these officers' willingness to use dogs as weapons against children and a crowd of cowards who valued their comfort over two girls' safety. Officer Martinez brought his dog right up to Jordan's face one more time. "Last chance," he said. "Tell us the truth or the dog decides for us." Jordan looked at the snarling animal, at the teeth that could tear her apart, at the adults who were supposed to protect children but instead were threatening them. And something broke in her 12-year-old mind. She stopped crying, stopped reacting, just stared straight ahead with empty eyes, gone somewhere inside herself where the fear couldn't reach. Maya saw her sister check out emotionally and felt rage cut through her terror. "You're hurting her," she screamed at Sharon. "Can't you see you're hurting us? We're just kids. We're innocent. Why are you doing this to us?" "Because you're guilty," Sharon said with absolute certainty. "And when these dogs prove it, everyone will see I was right." But here's what Sharon Mitchell didn't know. What none of these officers knew. What the silent crowd couldn't see. Someone in this terminal recognized these girls. Someone who knew their family. Someone who'd been watching this entire nightmare unfold with growing horror. And in about 30 seconds, that someone was going to step forward and change everything. Maya and Jordan didn't know rescue was coming. They just knew they'd been suffering for over 20 minutes with service dogs being used to terrorize them, with false accusations destroying their lives, with over 100 people watching their trauma and doing nothing. Before we continue, we need to pause here. According to the ACLU, black passengers are 2.5 times more likely to be stopped and searched at airports than white passengers. Children of color report experiencing racial profiling at rates that trauma psychologists call devastating. And bystander intervention could stop 70% of public discrimination incidents, but studies show that only 15% of witnesses actually intervene. That means 85% of people, like those at gate C42, choose silence. Choose comfort. Choose to record rather than rescue. If you're watching this and feeling guilty because you've been that silent witness, good. Use that guilt. Let it change you. Subscribe to this channel if you believe children deserve protection regardless of skin color. Like this video if you think service dogs should never be weaponized against kids. And comment below if you've ever witnessed injustice and regret not speaking up. Tell us your story. Tell us you'll do better next time. Because there will be a next time. And the next child being terrorized might only have you. The dogs kept barking. The officers kept threatening. And Maya and Jordan kept praying that someone, anyone, would finally have the courage to save them. That someone would appear. And when the person when the person stepped forward and reveal who he is, everything Sharon Mitchell believed about her power and her authority and her immunity from consequences was about to shatter. A voice cut through the chaos like a knife. Stop this right now. Get those dogs away from those children. Everyone turned to see a tall black man in his late 40s pushing through the crowd. He was well-dressed, carried himself with authority, and his face was twisted with fury as he took in the scene. Maya and Jordan were cornered against the gate desk, two German shepherds snarling in their faces, security officers looming over them, a gate agent watching with satisfaction. And over 100 people just standing there watching it happen. The man strode directly toward the girls, and Maya's heart leaped with recognition. Uncle Jerome. Her mother's older brother. What was he doing here? Uncle Jerome, Maya sobbed, fresh tears of relief streaming down her face. Uncle Jerome, please help us. They think we have drugs. They won't believe us. Please make them stop. Jerome Williams reached the girls and immediately positioned himself between them and the dogs, his body a shield. I know these children, he announced loudly. These are my nieces, Maya and Jordan Thompson. They're 14 and 12 years old. They're honor roll students going to visit their other uncle in Miami for Easter. There are no drugs. There's no crime. This is racial profiling pure and simple. Sir, step back, Officer Martinez commanded. This is a security matter. Don't interfere. Jerome didn't move an inch. A security matter? You're threatening children with attack dogs. You're terrorizing two girls who've done nothing wrong. Sharon Mitchell pushed forward, her face flushed with anger. Who do you think you are? These girls are suspected drug mules. We have every right to search them thoroughly. I'm their uncle, Jerome said, his voice steel. And you have zero evidence. You profiled them because they're black girls with first-class tickets. That's not reasonable suspicion. That's racism. Now let them go before this gets worse for everyone involved. Around them, the crowd shifted uneasily. Someone had finally intervened. Someone had finally named what everyone had been watching. Racial profiling. Child abuse. And suddenly the bystanders couldn't hide behind ignorance anymore. They'd watched this happen. They'd let it continue. And now someone was holding up a mirror to their cowardice. These girls refused to cooperate, Officer Collins said defensively. They became agitated and suspicious when questioned. They became terrified because you threatened them with dogs, Jerome shot back. They're children. Of course they're scared. Any child would be scared with German shepherds snapping at their faces. That doesn't make them criminals. That makes them victims of your abuse. Sharon's face contorted with rage. Sir, if you don't step back right now, I'm going to have security detain you too. You're interfering with an investigation. An investigation? Jerome pulled out his phone. Then let me call my sister. Let me call their mother. Let me call their father David Thompson, who's an attorney and will very much like to know that airport security is using dogs to terrorize his daughters. Would you like that, officer? Would you like to explain to a lawyer father why you threatened his children with attack? The officers exchanged uncertain glances. A lawyer father? That changed things. Suddenly this wasn't just two vulnerable black girls. This was potential lawsuit territory. This was complaints that could reach supervisors. This was a mess. I don't care who their father is, Sharon snapped. They're still suspicious. And you can be detained for obstruction. Officers, I want him held here too until we finish our examination. Jerome looked at her with disbelief. You want to detain me? For protecting my nieces? For pointing out that you're violating their civil rights? You're interfering with security protocols, Sharon insisted. That's a crime. Officers, restrain him. And keep those dogs on the girls until they confess. I don't care how long it takes. They're guilty and I'm going to prove it. Officer Martinez hesitated. Ma'am, maybe we should call a supervisor. This situation is escalating. No supervisors, Sharon hissed. Handle it. But Jerome was already dialing his phone. His first call wasn't to the girl's mother. It was directly to David Thompson. Because Jerome had been at a business meeting in the airport, had finished early, and had been walking past gate C-42 when he'd heard his niece's names being shouted. Had watched in horror as they were terrorized. Had finally found the courage that over 100 other people lacked. The phone rang once. David, Jerome said when his brother-in-law answered. I'm at the airport. Your daughters are here. And you need to get here immediately. They're being accused of drug trafficking. Security has dogs threatening them. It's bad, David. Really bad. On the other end of the line, David Thompson felt his world explode. And the father who owned shares in this airline, who was friends with the man who owned this airline, who had resources these people couldn't imagine, prepared to unleash absolute hell on everyone who'd touched his daughters. Jerome looked at Sharon Mitchell and the security officers with cold satisfaction. You just made the worst mistake of your careers. These girls' father is coming. And when he gets here, every single one of you is going to wish you'd listened when I told you to let them go." Sharon laughed, genuinely laughed. "Oh, I'm so scared." Another black man making threats. "Do you people ever take responsibility for your actions? Your nieces are drug mules. Their father is probably their supplier. And you're all going down." She had no idea that David Thompson was already calling the owner of Delta Airlines. Had no idea that her career was about to end in the next 30 minutes. Had no idea that her racism was about to cost her everything. But Maya and Jordan knew. They heard Uncle Jerome on the phone. Heard him say their father was coming. And for the first time in almost 30 minutes, they felt something other than terror. They felt hope. Because Daddy was coming. And when Daddy arrived, these people were going to learn what happened when you hurt a Thompson girl. David Thompson was in his downtown Atlanta office reviewing case files when Jerome's call came through. The words drug trafficking and your daughters in the same sentence made his blood turn to ice. Then Jerome explained everything. The false accusations. The confiscated phones. The service dogs being used as weapons to terrorize Maya and Jordan. Over 20 minutes of abuse while crowds watched and did nothing. David's hand gripped his phone so hard the screen cracked. "Where exactly are they?" he asked, his voice dropping to a tone his colleagues recognized as dangerous. "Gate C-42. Delta Airlines. They're still here. Security won't let them go. The gate agent is convinced they're carrying drugs. David, these dogs have been snapping at the girls' faces. I've never seen anything like this. They're traumatized. Is anyone hurt?" David demanded. "Did those dogs touch them?" "Not yet," Jerome said. "But it's close. These officers are using the animals to threaten them into confessing. Your daughters keep saying you bought the tickets legitimately, but nobody believes them. They think first-class tickets mean drug money for black people." David felt rage crystallize into something cold and precise. "Jerome, keep them safe. Don't let those officers or that gate agent out of your sight. I'm making calls right now. And tell my girls their father is coming. Tell them to hold on just a little longer." He hung up and immediately dialed another number. A number most people didn't have. The direct line to Richard Morrison, CEO and majority owner of Delta Airlines. David's friend. His golf partner. The man whose airline was currently terrorizing his children. Richard answered on the second ring. "David, what's up?" "Your staff is threatening my daughters with attack dogs at gate C-42, David said without preamble. "They've accused Maya and Jordan of drug trafficking because they're black girls with first-class tickets. They've confiscated their phones. They've been terrorizing them for almost 30 minutes with German shepherds. And over 100 passengers have watched it happen without intervening." There was dead silence on the other end of the line. "Well," David's voice was steel wrapped in fury. "Your gate agent, Sharon Mitchell, racially profiled my 14 and 12-year-old daughters. Called them drug mules. Had security bring service dogs not to examine them but to threaten them. Those dogs have been in my children's faces, Richard. Snapping at them. Being used as weapons to force false confessions from children. My children. And nobody stopped it." Richard Morrison felt his stomach drop. David Thompson wasn't just any passenger. He was a shareholder. He was a friend. He was a man with the legal expertise and resources to destroy Delta Airlines in court. And his children, his innocent daughters, were being abused by Delta's staff. "I'm calling the airport director right now," Richard said, already pulling up contacts on his computer. "Nobody moves. Nobody leaves that gate. I want every person involved detained until I get there." "I'm already on my way," David said. "I'm 15 minutes out. And Richard, when I get there, I want answers. I want to know how your staff thought it was acceptable to use dogs as weapons against children. I want to know how racial profiling is still happening in your airline in 2025. And I want consequences. Real consequences." "You'll have them," Richard promised. "David, I'm so sorry. This should never have happened. Your girls will have whatever they need. Medical attention, counseling, anything. And the people responsible will be terminated and prosecuted." "Damn right they will," David said. "Because I'm not just coming as an angry father. I'm coming as a shareholder who's about to make this airline's worst nightmare come true." See you at gate C42. He ended the call and grabbed his car keys. His assistant saw him rushing out and called after him. Mr. Thompson, you have a meeting in 20 minutes. Cancel everything, David said without stopping. My daughters need me. Nothing else matters. Back at gate C42, Jerome relayed the message to Maya and Jordan. Your daddy called the airline owner. He's coming. Both of them are coming. You hear me? Help is on the way. Maya collapsed against her uncle, sobbing with relief and residual terror. Jordan's catatonic stare finally broke, tears flowing again, but this time mixed with hope instead of pure fear. Sharon Mitchell overheard and laughed dismissively. Airline owner? These people always claim they know somebody important. It's pathetic. Officers, continue the examination. I want those girls searched thoroughly. But Officer Martinez was looking at his phone where a text had just come in from his supervisor. All personnel at gate C42 cease activity immediately. Executive order from CEO Morrison. Stand down until further notice. Do not let anyone leave the area. He looked at Sharon with dawning horror. Ma'am, I just got orders from the top. We need to stop. Stop? Sharon's voice rose shrilly. We're not stopping until these girls confess. I don't care who called who. We have a job to do. The airline owner called, Officer Collins said quietly, reading the same text. We've been ordered to stand down. This is coming from the CEO directly. Sharon's face went pale. That's impossible. These are just some black girls with an attitude. Who could they possibly know? Jerome smiled coldly. Their father owns shares in this airline. He's personal friends with your CEO. And in about 12 minutes, he's going to walk through this terminal and end all of your careers. You profiled the wrong children, terrorized the wrong family. And now you're all going to pay. You're lying, Sharon said, but her voice shook. You're just trying to scare us. The text on the officers' phones said otherwise. Multiple security supervisors were now rushing toward gate C42. The airport director had been contacted. The situation had escalated to the highest levels of airline management. And everyone involved was starting to realize that this wasn't just another racial profiling incident they could sweep under the rug. This was about to become a national story. A lawsuit that would cost millions. Criminal charges that would send people to prison. All because Sharon Mitchell had looked at two black girls and seen criminals instead of children. Maya held Jordan close, both girls still crying but feeling the shift in power. The officers had stepped back. The dogs were being pulled away. Sharon was arguing desperately into her radio. And Uncle Jerome stood guard over them, making sure nobody came near them again. Daddy was coming. Justice was coming. And everyone who'd hurt them was about to learn what consequences felt like. The terror wasn't over yet. But for the first time, the Thompson sisters believed it might actually end. And when it did, the people who'd abused them would face punishment that matched their crimes. David Thompson burst through the terminal entrance 12 minutes later, moving with purpose that made travelers instinctively step aside. Behind him came Richard Morrison, CEO of Delta Airlines, flanked by airport security supervisors, the airport director, and two attorneys from Delta's legal team. The group moved through the terminal like a storm, and everyone in their path knew something major was happening. Gate C42 came into view. David saw the crowd first. Over 200 people now, all with phones out, all watching. Then he saw the security officers with dogs. Then he saw Sharon Mitchell. And finally, he saw his daughters huddled against Jerome, their faces swollen from crying, their bodies shaking, their eyes filled with trauma he'd never seen before. Maya, Jordan, David called out, his voice breaking. The girls' heads snapped up at their father's voice. Daddy, Maya screamed, and both girls broke from Jerome's protection and ran. They crashed into their father's arms, sobbing so hard they couldn't breathe, holding onto him like drowning victims who'd finally reached shore. I'm here, David whispered fiercely, wrapping both daughters in his arms. Daddy's here. You're safe now. I've got you. He looked up at Sharon Mitchell over his daughters' heads, and his expression was pure fury. He said coldly, "You're the gate agent who did this to my children." Sharon's face had gone from confident to pale, but she still tried to maintain authority. "Sir, these girls were acting suspiciously. We have protocols for passengers who raise red flags. Red flags? David's voice was deadly quiet. They're children with legitimate tickets. What red flag? Their skin color? Richard Morrison stepped forward, his expression grim. Ms. Mitchell, you're suspended effective immediately. Security, escort her to the office. She's not to leave this airport until police arrive. Police? Sharon's voice rose to a panicked pitch. What police? I was doing my job. These girls were suspicious. You racially profiled children, Richard said coldly. You falsely accused them of drug trafficking. You confiscated their phones without cause. You used service dogs as weapons to terrorize them. That's not doing your job. That's committing multiple crimes. And you did it on camera, in front of 200 witnesses. The officers with the dogs shifted uncomfortably. David turned his attention to them. You too. You used those animals to threaten my daughters. To try to force false confessions from children. Sir, we were following the gate agent's lead, Officer Martinez said weakly. She said they were suspected drug mules. So you didn't verify her claims? David's voice was scalpel sharp. You didn't run their names? Didn't check their records? Just brought dogs and started threatening children based on a gate agent's racial bias? Officer Collins looked at the ground. We should have verified. We made a mistake. A mistake? David gestured at Maya and Jordan, still crying in his arms. Look at them. Look at what your mistake did. My daughters have been traumatized. Terrorized. They're going to need therapy for years because you decided black children with first-class tickets must be criminals. Airport Director Helen Chin stepped forward, her expression devastated. Mr. Thompson, on behalf of this airport, I'm deeply sorry. This should never have happened. These officers are suspended pending investigation. Criminal charges are being filed. Not good enough, David said. I want everyone involved arrested. The gate agent. These officers. Anyone who participated in this abuse. And I want the video footage from every angle. Every passenger who recorded this nightmare is evidence in the criminal case and the civil lawsuit. Richard put his hand on David's shoulder. It's already being handled. We're pulling security footage now. Sharon Mitchell, Officers Martinez and Collins are all being charged with false imprisonment, child endangerment, and civil rights violations. We're looking at federal hate crime charges as well. Sharon finally broke, tears streaming down her face. I didn't know. If I'd known who their father was, who they were connected to, I never would have. There it is, Jerome said coldly. If you'd known who they were connected to. Not that what you did was wrong. Just that you picked the wrong victims. You would have been fine terrorizing black children without powerful parents. That's what you're really sorry about. Sharon opened her mouth but nothing came out. She'd revealed the truth of her racism. It wasn't that she regretted her actions. She regretted that these particular black children had a father who could make her face consequences. Police officers arrived, moving through the crowd. Sharon Mitchell, you're under arrest for false imprisonment of minors, child endangerment, and violation of civil rights. The handcuffs clicked around her wrists while 200 people watched the woman who'd terrorized children finally face justice. Officers Martinez and Collins were cuffed next. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney. Maya watched the woman who'd called her a drug dealer being led away in handcuffs and felt something shift. This was real. Justice was actually happening. The people who'd hurt her were actually being arrested. It didn't undo the trauma. Didn't erase the fear. But it meant something. It meant their pain mattered. It meant their father's power had protected them. David kissed both daughters' foreheads. Let's get you out of here. We're going home. Easter in Miami is canceled. We're going home where you're safe. But Daddy, Jordan whispered. We wanted to see Uncle Marcus. We were so excited. David's heart broke all over again. I know, baby. I know. But Uncle Marcus understands. He's already on a plane to Atlanta. The whole family is coming to us instead. We're going to have Easter at home. Together, safe. Richard Morrison approached with genuine remorse. Mr. Thompson, Delta will cover all medical and counseling expenses. We're settling whatever lawsuit you file. And we're implementing immediate policy changes across all our operations. Mandatory racial bias training. New protocols for security interactions with minors. This will never happen again. It shouldn't have happened this time, David said coldly. But yes, we'll be discussing compensation. After my daughters receive the care they need. After the criminal trials. After everyone involved serves time. Then we'll talk about what your airline owes my family. He scooped up both girls, holding them close. Come on, babies. Let's go home. As they walked away from gate C-42, past 200 guilty bystanders who'd finally seen consequences delivered, Maya whispered the question haunting her. Daddy, why didn't anyone help us? Why did they all just watch? And David Thompson had no answer that would make that betrayal hurt less. 6 months later, Sharon Mitchell stood in federal court for sentencing. The trial had been swift and brutal. Video evidence from 47 passenger phones showed everything. The false accusations. The racial slurs. The service dogs being used as weapons against terrified children. The judge, a black woman who'd reviewed every horrific detail, looked at Sharon with unconcealed disgust. You didn't just racially profile 2 children, Judge Andrea Williams said, her voice cutting through the silent courtroom. You weaponized your authority to terrorize them. You used service dogs trained to detect drugs as instruments of psychological torture. You did this publicly, confidently, knowing that your whiteness and your position would protect you. You were wrong. Sharon's attorney tried to intervene. Your Honor, my client has no prior record. She's lost her job, her reputation. She's suffered enough. Suffered enough? The judge's voice rose. Those children suffered for 37 minutes while your client smiled. While she threatened them. While she tried to break them into false confessions. Your client's suffering has consequences. Those girls' suffering was cruelty. This court sentences Sharon Mitchell to 4 years in federal prison for false imprisonment, child endangerment, and civil rights violations. Sharon collapsed, sobbing. For years. Her life destroyed. All because she'd looked at 2 black girls with first-class tickets and seen criminals instead of children. Officers Martinez and Collins received 3 years each for their role in using the dogs as weapons. Both men stood stoically as the sentences were read, their careers and futures demolished by 37 minutes of racist complicity. But prison time wasn't the only consequence. Delta Airlines settled with the Thompson family for $32 million, the largest racial profiling settlement in aviation history. The money would cover years of therapy for Maya and Jordan, fund their college educations, and establish a foundation fighting discrimination in travel. Yet money couldn't fix everything. Maya, now 15, still had panic attacks at airports. The family had driven to every vacation since that Easter. Jordan, 13 now, had nightmares about dogs and struggled with anxiety that made her throw up before leaving home. Both girls were in therapy twice a week, working through trauma that would mark them forever. The Easter trip to Miami never happened. Uncle Marcus had flown to Atlanta that same day, the whole family gathering not for celebration but for crisis. The joy of that holiday was stolen, replaced by police statements and medical examinations and the beginning of a legal battle that would consume months. David Thompson had kept his promise. Everyone involved faced consequences. But watching his daughters struggle with PTSD, seeing them flinch at authority figures, hearing them cry about the strangers who'd watched their suffering and done nothing, he understood that justice was incomplete. Punishment didn't erase trauma. Convictions didn't restore innocence. Settlement money didn't give back the childhood his girls had lost in 37 minutes at gate C-42. The 200 bystanders who'd watched and recorded faced no criminal charges. But their faces were public. Their silence documented. Some lost jobs when their employers saw the videos. Some faced social media backlash. Most just lived with guilt that would never fully fade. They'd witnessed children being terrorized and chosen comfort over courage. Chosen recording over rescuing. And while they faced no legal consequences, they'd have to live forever knowing they'd failed 2 children who desperately needed adults to be brave. Sharon Mitchell went to prison. The officers lost everything. Delta paid millions. Policies changed across the aviation industry. Mandatory intervention training was implemented. Racial bias protocols were rewritten. But Maya and Jordan Thompson would carry scars forever. would remember the day service dogs were weaponized against them, would never forget that 200 people watched them suffer and only one had the courage to intervene. Justice had been served, but it came too late to prevent the damage. Too late to protect their innocence. Too late to save them from learning the hardest lesson of their young lives, that being black children with first-class tickets made them suspects, that their excellence offered no protection from racism, and that crowds of witnesses would choose silence over salvation. The convictions were real. The punishment was severe. The policy changes were significant. But none of it could give Maya and Jordan back what Sharon Mitchell had stolen, their sense of safety in a world that had proved itself cruel. Sharon Mitchell serves her sentence in federal prison. Officers Martinez and Collins lost their careers and their freedom. Delta paid millions and changed policies industry-wide. But none of that gives the Thompson sisters back their innocence. The lesson from this story isn't complicated. It's painfully simple. One person's courage changed everything. Uncle Jerome stepped forward when 200 others stayed back. One man intervened when everyone else chose silence. One voice spoke up when a crowd stayed quiet. And his courage triggered the justice that followed. Here's the truth that should haunt every person who watched this story. Those 200 bystanders weren't evil people. They were ordinary passengers. Parents, professionals, people like you. They told themselves it wasn't their business. That security knew what they were doing. That someone else would help. That getting involved was risky. And 2 children suffered because of those choices. If this story broke your heart, if you felt rage at those bystanders, answer this question honestly. Would you have been the 201 silent witness, or would you have been Uncle Jerome? Because here's what we know about bystander intervention. When one person speaks up, others follow. When one person breaks the silence, courage becomes contagious. But someone has to be first. Someone has to risk comfort for justice. Someone has to value children's safety over their own convenience. Studies show that in 70% of discrimination incidents, bystanders intervene. 0. They watch, they record, they feel uncomfortable, they do nothing. But when just one person speaks up, intervention rates jump to 65%. One person's courage creates permission for others to act. Maya and Jordan were saved because one man decided their suffering mattered more than his comfort. One uncle who could have walked past like everyone else. One voice that said stop when everyone else stayed silent. What if he hadn't been there? What if no family member had recognized them? What if they'd been 2 random black girls with nobody to call, nobody with connections, nobody with power? They would have continued suffering. Would have been strip-searched. Would have faced worse trauma. Because crowds don't protect vulnerable people. Individuals do. Subscribe to this channel if you believe one person's courage can change everything. Like this video if you think children deserve protection from adults brave enough to intervene. Share this with someone who needs to understand that silence isn't neutrality, it's complicity. But here's where we need you to be honest with yourself. Really honest. Drop a comment below and answer this. Have you ever witnessed discrimination and stayed silent? Have you ever seen someone being mistreated and told yourself it wasn't your business? Have you ever recorded injustice instead of stopping it? Because if you have, if you've been one of those silent bystanders, this is your moment. This is where you decide who you'll be next time. Will you be the 200th person recording? Or will you be Uncle Jerome? Tell us where you're watching from. Tell us what time it is. Tell us if this story changed you. Tell us if you'll speak up next time. Because your words here, your commitment in this comment section, that's practice for the real moment when someone needs you to be brave. The Thompson sisters still struggle 3 years later. Therapy helps but doesn't erase. Justice was served but came too late. Sharon Mitchell is in prison but the damage is permanent. 200 bystanders have to live with their silence forever. Don't be another person who watches evil and does nothing. Don't be someone who has to live with the guilt of knowing a child suffered because you chose comfort. Be Uncle Jerome. Be the one who steps forward. Be the voice that says stop. Be the courage that saves someone. Because the next Maya and Jordan might not have a father with connections. Might not have an uncle in the crowd. Might not have power or resources or anyone except you. And you have to be enough. Your courage has to be sufficient. Your voice has to be loud enough. Your intervention has to be brave enough. This is Hyper Racism Channel, where we expose the truth about racial profiling, about bystander silence, about systems that fail Black children, and about the heroes who refuse to stay quiet. We're not backing down. We're not staying silent. And we need you with us. Next time you see injustice, be Uncle Jerome. Step forward. Speak up. Save someone. Because silence isn't safety. Silence is violence. And we refuse to be silent anymore. Thank you for watching. Now go be the change. Be brave. Be the one who intervenes. And never, ever be a silent witness when someone needs you to be a hero. The Thompson sisters are still healing. Still fighting. Still surviving. Don't let their suffering be meaningless. Let it teach you. Change you. Make you braver. See you in the next video. Stay vigilant. Stay courageous. And never stay silent.